One crucial moment in this video series has finally arrived. As announced in my last video, today we're going to actually build up our three scenes, our three basic scenes from scratch. But that does not mean that we're done after this video. There's way more to come. How to get all of this nice build up into Zoom or Teams, how that works. And of course, how to control the scenes remotely will be quite an important feature. So there's much more to come. So without further ado, let's pop over to OBS. You see here the main screen. You still hear me, hopefully, but this is the main OBS. I have opened another scene collection here. I called this scenes in OBS higher education. You see this here on top, and this is entirely blank scene. And then we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna create our scenes. The first scene is already there. It's called scene, and I would suggest we're gonna go ahead and just rename this. Now give this some more descriptive name. So that will be, for example, just something that you can remember this by. Let's call this the main scene with talking head. For instance, yeah, maybe you can come up with something more creative, but it explains what I can expect here on the scene. If you have at one point maybe 10 or 15 scenes in there, then you just want something that you know when you see the name what composition is in that scene. The second scene is the one with the talking head and the content. So let's call this content scene, or just content with small talking head. And then just one more here, namely the overhead cam with small talking head. Remember that we want to have this divider line because we are going to use nested scenes for the camera, and we're going to use nested scenes for the audio captures. Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and just add that in here. We have used the dividing line, which is basically an empty scene with a couple of asterisks here to just divide this off from the nested scenes. Yeah, actually we're going to create the nested scenes separately. So again, here this will be the main scene with some kind of background. And what we can already create is that background. That background can be anything. That background can be some slides that you created with a logo on it, or you can create that logo right in there. So what I will do is I will actually create a color source as a background. And since this will be a background, I call this BG for background, so I know what it is. And this will be what fits with my outfit today. Maybe something green background. Yeah, let's select a nice decent color here. So maybe something not as neon as this. This is actually quite decent, but maybe something less green screeny. How about that? That's okay. Let's maybe that one. That's more yellow, stronger green. I know I'm being picky here. I think I had this one before. Let's pick a dark green one. Yeah. So this is a dark green back screen, and I will just go ahead and click OK, and I will transform this. Yeah. So we have explained this a lot. I'm just going ahead and I'm going to fit this to the screen. So now I have an entire background here, and here in this area I will place the camera. Back here I can always put some kind of text. So I would probably just proceed and start adding the camera here, because I know I will use my main cam here and here. So I'm gonna add my camera here. And as for nested scene, let's call this main, just give it a different name. Let's call it the face cam. You can call it again, I called it earlier main cam, or you give it the name of the camera, or something along those lines. So that will of course be an empty scene. I'm gonna add a source here, and that source is, as we know, a video capture device. That I give the name of my camera. You probably noticed here that I'm typing C922. I mentioned in another video that my main webcam is a Logitech C920. I have upgraded because my overhead cam broke in the meantime. So I bought a Logitech C922, and that's my face cam now, and the overhead cam is my previous face cam. So I'm not getting too complex here, just click on OK, and now we're selecting the correct camera, which is in my case the C922 ProStream webcam. You can see me here. I'm back. I have reappeared, fully lit up here. You can see more of my background than I want you to see, by the way. So I'm gonna change that in a minute. But I want to change a couple of settings here. I set this to custom. I'm disappearing for a moment until I have picked my resolution. The resolution that I am picking is the resolution that the webcam is capable of. Don't pick anything higher, but of course you could go lower if you wanted to. I click on deactivate when not showing. Next thing I'm setting is the frames per second. I actually leave this on match output FPS. You can set this higher if you want. Again, something that you can experiment with. The video format is recommended MJPEG. For this particular webcam, it's the only option, which is actually good. That's the option I want. The color space full, and the color range also full. Sorry, the color space 709, and the color range also full. Buffering I leave at detect. We explained the other settings in the separate video on webcam, and I'm not quite clicking OK. I just want to check my configure video first, so you can see this better. I moved this a little bit here to the side. So my settings are here. You can see them right there next to me. Alright, and then camera control and autofocus is already disabled. This is great. This is what I wanted. You remember that I suggested disabling autofocus. With the other settings, play around with them. You can even try to switch off low light compensation if your webcam tends to be a bit grainy. Try things out. Again, brightness is something that you need to play with, or recommend you playing with. Gain, and over here, exposure and focus. I leave this as is. It looks okay to me. Yeah. So now I have my face cam here. I'm jumping back to my main scene here. Yeah, by the way, you probably noticed the audio mixer, because I explained my webcams have microphones. I'm disabling those. I'm just clicking here in the audio mixer on mute. I jump back to my main scene with my green background. I'm gonna add my nested face cam scene now as a scene. Here it is waiting for me. I click OK. And here I am. And now I'm gonna take this away, this part. And you can see here, this is of course, oops, that's the wrong one. I told you in one of my videos, you have to be really careful which of the sources you're grabbing. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to make this as square as possible. You can see here on top is my microphone. It's right on top of there. I don't want this to be seen in my video, so I'm just gonna cut it out. I'm gonna crop it out a little bit more here, a little bit more here. Is it almost squared? Almost. So you might recall, probably my last video, you probably noticed that I didn't actually talk about it, but you noticed that I had actually a frame around my window here. And instead of me sitting in front of a green screen, I was sitting in front of my actual background, as I do just now. You might not have a green screen. You might start out without a green screen. So I want to show you basically both. A couple of videos with me using a green screen with the scenes, and then this is the second video, without me using the green screen, but how to include myself in such a window. And of course you can move yourself around, you can place yourself down here. Yeah, you can make yourself smaller here in the corner. On this scene we don't want that, we want you a little bit bigger. I would suggest maybe try a frame here, and we're gonna build a frame. That's gonna be the bonus today. I'm gonna show you how to put a frame around yourself very nicely in this video. But not just now. So first we build up the 3 scenes, and at the end we're gonna do the frame. So let's put some kind of text here as well. Remember, here, another source, add some text, and now we give this a nice text. Let's call this welcome, and maybe indicate this is a text. Of course, I mean the symbol kind of tells you the symbol of the source, but you know, it doesn't hurt. And then we type in welcome to your first 3 scenes. You see this, there's no break here. You need to do that break. So let's say welcome to your first 3 scenes. Of course, I'm gonna change that to my preferred font, which is Bahnschrift. Of course, you can pick any font you prefer on your system. And I'm gonna go and change this size here to 72, which makes it a little bit smaller. I can underline it just to demonstrate this. Let's underline the text on this occasion. Actually, no, that looks... no, I don't like that. It doesn't look good. So let's take it away. Click OK, and then we can go ahead and check a couple of other things. The background color of the text, yeah, we could change that one if we wanted to. I don't want it. White on gray, dark green should be fairly well visible. And the alignment I prefer is center. Yeah, so here's a center alignment. That looks okay. I don't want an outline, but by all means, try, test. Then I'm going to drag this over here, and now I'm going to make this a little bit larger. And this could be anything. This could be this welcome text. This could be a logo. This could be like 3-4 bullet points right there, basically, this side. Right there next to me could be a couple of bullet points. 1, 2, 3, 4. What's in today's session or something like that. Yeah. I prefer specific starting screens with just me, so it's not taking away too much attention from me as a speaker. That's quite important. I think on that particular screen, the whole point is that you are the focus, so there should be very, very little with you on the screen. We need the audio as well. We can set up the audio straight away, just like last time in the last video. So let's add another nested scene at this point. So I hope that this is as logical in approach as possible. So I'm going to call these now audio sources. Okay, nested scene audio sources, because it will feature the desktop audio. It will also feature the microphone. So let's go ahead and do just that. I'm going to click on add, and we start with the audio input capture. Here we need to create a new one, and we're gonna call this one, so this is the source. This is my newer NW 800 mic, but call this whatever you think works best for you. So you know, you see the name, you know what it is. Okay, click on OK, and then you need to select that microphone. Okay, so whatever that is on your system. And you saw the moment I selected it, it started moving here with the audio mixer. I click on OK, and I'm going ahead actually and gonna apply my filters to make sure that our voice is as well audible as possible. So the filters we were applying last week, and I'm just gonna apply them today with a quick explanation. So I'm assuming I'm in an environment that has normal noise, so I'm not selecting the noise gate, I'm selecting the noise suppression. And since I have a CPU that can take that workload, I select the RN noise, good quality, more CPU usage. If you don't have that, try this one, specs or speaks. You can just try both and see which one works better. You might find if you use the specs one that you actually want to do without a noise suppression in the first place. If you want to use the Teams noise suppression, so if you're using a Microsoft Teams, you want to use that noise suppression instead and just leave it off here. So the second filter that we added was in fact the compressor. You might remember the compressor has the purpose of evening out your voice to avoid that it's going up and down and fluctuating. We suggested that we leave it at the settings, and you can try yourself, just try with the filters, record yourself for a couple minutes and then listen to it and change settings and listen again. There's a lot of first work around this, but it's worth it. Once you have your ideal settings, then you're gonna be very happy with your audio quality there. The next bit that we need to add is actually the limiter and the gain. Remember that we want to hit these high notes here, okay? The limiter, but we don't want to go beyond the -3 decibels. So the limiter on one hand tries to prevent you from going above that threshold. So the threshold here is, oops, I'm going the wrong direction. The threshold here is -3. That means you're not going above that sweet spot. So there is now a little dot here on the top that indicates this is where it ends or this is where it stops. And if you're not quite hitting those high notes here with your voice, so my microphone is fairly close to you and it picks up the sound quite well. The problem is still I'm not quite up there, and if you have some editing later on, if you decide to edit your videos and you want to work with your audio, it is better if you hit those high notes here as well. Basically, you should be in that area here. So give yourself a little bit of gain. Yeah, so we can add some gain here. So I'm just gonna use 15 and see how far that gets me. Oh, that gets me quite high up, but it gets where I want it to be. And I'm not over peaking, if you can see that. Yeah, so that's not too bad. I have good gain here. So yes, that might be my sweet spot here for the gain. So I have my 4 filters up and I close this and my microphone is in my nested scene. So the second one we're gonna add now here in the audio sources is the desktop audio. We do so by clicking on plus, and this is an audio output capture, and we're gonna name this desktop audio. Again, very basic here, everything that comes from the system, that's desktop audio and can thus be recorded. The source is visible, so to speak. And now we need to select which device that is on our system emits that sound that you want, and that's typically the speakers. Yeah, so you need to look for something similar like the speakers, how they're called. If you're not sure, you can look that up in your device manager. I've shown you the device manager in the first video. Check the device manager and have a look what your main output here is. Yeah, so click on speakers. Here, that's my output. You can see my desktop audio is already added here. The speakers will feed into that, and I can demonstrate that exactly that. So you won't hear the music very loudly, but a little bit in the background, and you will see that this is starting to move. There you go. See? So this works with the desktop audio. It's picking up the sound from the desktop via the speakers. So whatever goes to the speakers and is basically being emitted to me, the listener. And we can actually go ahead and add this nested scene here too. Add scene. And we're going to add the audio sources. And now we have audio in here. I personally don't like that perspective with the audio mixer. I like this one vertical. There you go. Because I typically have a lot more than that next to it. So now this source is complete. Let's check if that's true. We have our camera. We have the background. We have a little bit of text. We have the audio in. Excellent. And you see that my microphone is picking up the sound here. Great. The only thing's missing is the promised border, which we're going to do at the end. So now let's go ahead with our next scene. The next scene is content with talking head. So in this scene, we're going to create content with a small talking head. Let's put myself in first because I already have created that scene, right? As a nested scene, my camera. So this is my face cam. I click here. I appear, but I'm going to make myself quite small. So I'm going to grab the Alt key. Remember, that's how I crop. Alt key. And then I grab one of the handles, and when it turns green, you did it right. And I'm going to make myself square-ish here once more. Cut out the microphone here on the top of my head. Maybe something like this. Cut out a little bit more of my background here, so you have a natural background like me, and you don't want people to see your nice Funko figures or Lego stuff from my daughter or other things. You can crop them out, yeah, if you don't have a green screen. We will do a green screen video separately, but let's assume we don't have a green screen at this point. And I'm moving myself down here in the corner. I will put a border, around myself, but I make myself fairly small. Of course, you can put yourself anywhere on the screen. Pop yourself over here, there, down here. I put myself in that corner. I'm probably gonna move that a little bit once the border comes in. That's the corner now. And now I'm adding some background. To make things easier, if you're using something like a PowerPoint, for instance. So if I want to use a PowerPoint for a specific session, you're preparing your scene, there is something that will help you deal with or capture the window better in OBS. So a little side note here now on PowerPoint. A little PowerPoint mini tutorial. In PowerPoint, you go to the slideshow tab, you go to set up slideshow, and then typically it is set to presented by a speaker full screen. Change this to browsed by an individual window. Yeah, so bracket window when you click, and if you were to put this in presentation mode, you have still control of that window. See, you have the close button, maximize and restore down. And so on. So it's not entirely full screen. That's quite useful when you use it in OBS. So I'm just moving this to my other screen. You can prepare that, right? So we're going to do a window capture. What you should not be doing is don't minimize the window. If you minimize the window, OBS is basically not finding it. So let's do a window capture, and it could be a particular session. Yeah, so it could be a PowerPoint for account information session 6 it was in this case, yeah. And now you can check which windows are actually open. There's a couple of those, yeah. We have the PowerPoint here, the capture method. You can see which one works best. I think if you have a Windows 10, then you should pick the Windows 10 1903. That's version 1903 and up. And the rest you can leave as is. Capture the cursor. That's not a bad thing if you have that. Yeah, and now you see this is here in OBS. It's not quite stretched, but I can do that. I can change that by right-clicking, transform, fit to screen, et voila. Yeah. So you see that the screen is not quite even here because I'm still slightly visible down there. So basically, you see me moving back here. That's not a big problem because we can, of course, change that. So I'm putting this into full screen presentation mode, and you can see that in OBS it looks like this. I'll actually move it slightly up here. I'm going to show you in a minute why. Because at the moment I'm still behind that window, as you can see. I need to move myself in the sources section above the content, and I'm back here. The thing is, if you're using no green screen and you have this as a background here, your natural background, and you want to use a border, you don't have to make a border as we do later, but you want to use a border, you don't want to cover up too much. If I'm in front of a green screen, just basically my head and my shoulders and some, it's covering up the content. But if you're having the PowerPoint in full visible, you might cover up too much. So either you're checking your slides and you check all the content that before you use it in class, because you inadvertently might be covering up some crucial stuff and nobody's telling you that you do, because they think, hey, that's how it's supposed to be. So if you're working with a window like that, no green screen and maybe a border, either you make yourself smaller, but if you still want to be visible and you want to have students be able to lip read, from me, so if you talk to them, if you're too small, you're making this very difficult, or you have a beard, then you can just go ahead and move this up here a little bit. We can do that. It's a variation. And then if we go along in I'm now going on the other screen, and I'm clicking here on my presentation. You can see I'm covering some parts up, so I can just go ahead and I'm gonna meet myself halfway here. This a little bit smaller, this a little bit smaller. Okay, there you go. And now those two contents are adapted to one another. You can see that. And you're next to the content. That's our second scene. Almost done. What's missing? The border, the promised border, and the audio is missing. The audio is a nested scene. We created those, and you see that's also an advantage of using this as a nested scene. You just then add the scene wherever you want. Big advantage, because everything is predefined in that scene. You do the definitions, the filters, webcams, and so on once, and you just drag those scenes in. Done. Yeah, you work much quicker. Okay, so here's my audio, and the microphone is moving. I do this just to see the. See, and it's not going above the gain. It's good. The limiter is holding well. Good. Last scene. The last scene is the overhead cam. We have not defined the overhead cam yet. We're gonna do that because now it's needed as a nested scene. New scene. You can call this overhead cam, or maybe you want to call this visualizer. Is also a very good name for it. Desk cam, however you want to call this. This is of course a video capture device. In my case, it's my Logitech C920, my former face cam. And I'm gonna select this here. It already is. I'm gonna change its settings. Custom. Bigger resolution. Alright, I'm just gonna move some stuff off screen. So something that you definitely need to check out is what do you have on the desk that you're using. So I can of course now say, all right, I left the juice here for demonstration purposes. Now I forgot to move the juice off. But you can check what's on screen. Also, like mobile phones, if you're using an overhead camera and there's might be private messages popping up here, remember these things could be recorded and people could actually look at that. So either turn it around or actually move it off screen. This little device here I will explain in a later video what that does. Alright, and we can check match output FPS, frames per second is good for us. We can change that to something higher if we wanted to. Let's see what it does with highest FPS. Slightly better. The video format, MJPEG. The color space should be full. And the color range. Color space 709. Color range full. We leave the rest as is. It will add audio. As you can see here, audio and audio mixer, because again this is a webcam with a microphone Just gonna close this. We're gonna mute it. So let's get our components in. Yeah, let's compose our screen. First, let's start with our main player, namely the overhead cam. So this is a scene where we want to show things on the desk. And you can see one thing here. Yeah, so any changes in settings will affect changes here. So actually done this intentionally to just demonstrate that once more that nature of a nested scene. So see, this is kind of that way how the webcam is pointing down now, but I want this to be turned so it looks as if people can look over my shoulder. All right. So I'm going back to my nested scene for that, and nested scene overhead cam. That looks now the same. And now I'm going ahead and actually I'm going to transform this fit to screen. It does make sense. Then I'm gonna go back, transform, flip horizontal, and once more transform, flip vertical. And now, so this here is my right hand. You can actually read that here, yeah, in proper writing here says Stream Deck. Yeah, so now it's as if people could look over your shoulder to see things, what you're doing. Of course, you need to, again, experiment. So in my case here, I have here a lamp that is quite reflective here. I'll go ahead and switch it off. Then it looks like this. It will very much depend. If you do a live session, if it's during the day, you need to work with the lighting as it is. Sometimes you can't really influence it. In this case, if I want to demonstrate something here, yeah, in this case I wanted to switch this off. This will most likely affect my face cam. So let's have a look how that looks like in my actual scene. So you see that in my actual scene, yes, you can see that here. I've actually switched to it. Of course, it looks the same at this point. Let's add the face cam, and it's most likely it will look a bit dark in the face cam because I switched one light source off. Face cam in. Oh, it's not too bad actually. So I'm gonna adapt my face cam now, make sure that it's selected. And once more I'm going to Alt this, yeah, so I'm going to do this, just as I did earlier. And let's say I want to sit on this occasion. Where do I have most space? I could sit up here. If I have a frame, it doesn't really matter where you put yourself. So you can so if you work like this, yeah, you can look basically into the content like that. Yeah, or we can put the scene down here. Entirely personal taste. I'm pop myself up here, yeah, and all that is missing now is of course the audio, and here is the audio, and it's working. Here's the microphone, just testing my microphone here. Yeah, that looks good. So all right, that's not too bad. So what do we have? We have our hello, welcome to the session, my dear students screen. This is what we're going to talk about. Yeah, check where you need to point so it looks right. I tend to point the wrong way. This is today's session. Introduction, blah blah. Yeah. Then you can of course make animations here too, and then you switching over to the next screen. Okay, and now we go into the content, dear students. And isn't today's session great? We're gonna talk about this. And now I'm going to demonstrate something great here on my desk, dear students. I'm going to draw something really nice. I'm going to build something with Lego bricks to demonstrate a concept. I'm going to do a little play with figurines to demonstrate some other concept. I think you get the idea, yeah? So I've already started to kind of link my screen composition here to purpose. And I believe if you do the first two screens here, you already gained much over what Teams can allow you to do, because you're in the image, you're in the content, and that is worth a lot already. That's a big improvement already, and everything on top of that is just, it's just cream on the cake. these screen composition that I introduced to you here, they have a point. They have a purpose. Yeah, we're going to talk about it a little bit more when we actually link OBS design elements and deliberations thereof to a lesson plan. Yeah, and you're going to think about, okay, I have this lesson plan. What do I do? Yeah, what do we do now with OBS? Because let's not forget, OBS is an enabling technology, and that's how you should use it for. But it's a very powerful Swiss Army knife, basically, for making your online presence really, really powerful. And that's the beauty of it. It's just beautiful. So, one more thing before we part is the promised webcam board. So, the website, I put the link in the description as usual, but this is an animated gradient border generator. Some clever fella has created that. It creates a border to be used in OBS overlays. And for that you need a browser source that you can bring in. So let me show you how that's done. And you can create a nice border such as I used earlier in my main screens. If you're interested in something like that. So I want to have a border around my camera here. Yeah, this is fairly square windowed, right? So I'm gonna go ahead, and you see that side here. You can see a couple of examples here. I leave it to you to click through. I want to have actually a circle, but I want to have different colors here. This is a bit too bright. Let's see what kind of nice color we have. That's not too bad. We can change that here also to rectangle. It's very rainbowy. That's here reddish. Yeah, you see what's happening here. I'm gonna go ahead and use this one. That's the one I used. Now you need to choose, it's rectangle or circle. I want a rectangle. And now I would select a square here, 500 by 500, okay? All right. So 500 by 500, because then we can resize it to fit above my window here. So you can change the border width. I would make it a bit bigger, maybe around, again, taste, but 25 should be okay. And then you can choose these two tones. I actually chose fade to black because then it's a bit darker. And it basically blue and black are chasing one another around the frame. So what happens next? Next, you need to click Get New URL right here. This generates this URL, and that's basically a browser source. Yeah. So I Control C this to copy it. Yeah. Control C. I'm gonna add this border around here. Just need to make it large enough. So that means I'm going to add a browser source because now I have an URL. Browser. I'm going to call this cam border large. Okay. Remember that we measured this there as a 500 by 500. There will be a little bit of distance between it. Just put in around 600 by 600. And up here, replace the default URL with the one you just copied, and see if that brings the frame in. See, this is a browser source now in my OBS, and what I'm doing now, I can see that this is okay. This is fairly thin, but I can pull it a bit bigger. See, like that. So I'm going to my webcam. Yeah, select the webcam, and I'm gonna crop this behind the frame, so it's as if I'm in the frame now. Like so. Look at that. And now I'm sitting in a frame. Yeah, so if you don't have a green screen, that's an option. Browser source, cam border. So There you go. Just like that. So one more border, and just like in the previous scene, but we're going to put the border up here. Add the border. Remember, this was a browser source. There you go. Cam border. So any overlaps? No overlaps. There you go. And I'm sitting in the frame. There you go. These are your base scenes. With those, you can basically already start doing entire online classes. Yeah? So share your main screen, share applications, and you can start trying things out. That's the best way of actually do it. Try OBS in class. Maybe if you're self-conscious about first uses of OBS in front of a live audience, use it in a couple of recordings. Try it out in recordings, see what works. So I will show you a couple of additional ways, scenes, scene compositions, more ways and ideas and options to engage your students. Now over to you. As usual, I have a question of the day. So how did you find building the 3 scenes? Do you think you're going to be using it more in recordings or live sessions or maybe both? Just let me know in the comment below. If you have any questions about anything that we have covered in this video today, then please feel free to leave a comment below as well. By the way, if you liked this video, please consider giving a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to get the latest tips and tutorials for your digital skills. Again, thanks for watching, and please stay hungry for new skills. Bye!